I would say I'm just putting it on, pushing it in, and then you want to leave it. Okay, a few things before we start. Always wet your walls in, whether it's block, brick, it doesn't matter, just always wet it in. I've just thrown a load of water on, and that's for two reasons. Render likes to stick to moisture. It doesn't like anything dry or dusty, so the water will not only help to give moisture to the blocks, but it'll also remove any dust that is on there, which means your render won't fall on the floor. Another thing is, always sweep your floors before starting. We're going to drop this stuff, it's going to fall on the floor, that way you can just scoop it up, throw it back on your hawk and start again. So really there's nothing to it. Load your hawk up. What you want to do, start pushing it on. When you're using it, apply your render, keep your hawk under. If anything falls, it'll just fall back onto your hawk. And just really squeeze it in, push it into the wall. You want to make sure it's got a nice grip. There's a lot of roll plugs in here, just annoying. So you literally take it onto your trowel and push it into the wall. You don't want to really worry about getting it too flat, you don't really want to play with the render. Once you put it on, just leave it. So this is going to consist of two coats. This is a scratch coat. This is the base coat. And what the mix is, it's 4:1. 4 parts sand, 1 part cement and waterproofers. And that's the mix we're going to be doing for the base. And then we're going to drop it down for the next. And I'll show you the next mix in the next part of the video. But again, really push it in. The thing is the render, it's a lovely product to use. Just got to get used to it. It's quite heavy as well, so don't overload your trowel or hawk. You'll just hurt yourself. I can work top to bottom, that saves any waste coming down. Just for the video purposes, I'm starting from the bottom. So it's a nice strong mix, where the base is going to be really grinding and gripping to the block work there. And then we'll get weaker as we go. So you can see it's quite dark in colour. But you're worth it. And like I said, when you are using it, just push it into the render and then trowel it into the coat board. Now usually rendering, you start right and work to your left. Again, it's quite a long wall, I can't fit it all in, so for video purposes we've just started in the middle. Probably get a chip off other renderers for that, but usually right to left. I would say I'm just putting it on, pushing it in, and then you want to leave it. So once all the render's on, what we're going to do is scratch it. But first, I'm going to give it a good rule, straighten it off, so I'll show you that in a minute. This is my secret weapon, by the way. It's my mixing bath. Get two full loads in there. You get about 10 buckets of sand, 2 cement. It's an absolute beast. And this is what I use when I'm doing any sand cement jobs. It's a brilliant little piece of kit. Keep your paddle in there. Mix it when it's dry. Perfect. Got a section on. You don't want to go too far ahead of yourself. Basically, this area's done. Now you've got 2 options. You can leave it and just scratch it. That's what a lot of people do. There's nothing wrong with that. But with my scratch coat, I just like to give it a little rule. Try and get it straight when you can, really. Because because when it comes to the top coat, we're going to really be focusing on getting it perfectly flat and straight. So I'm just going to give it a quick rule. Nothing crazy. Literally just use your rule to flatten off. There's still some high spots in the block work, so you are going to catch a few bits. There are a few roll plugs that made it past my vision. But yeah, work both ways. One way, keep your fat where you can, put it back on where it's needed. I'm just going to try and get it flat. Cross. Top's still a bit wet, so just make sure I don't fall over. And just put it back on the wall. So anything you collect, this is a feather edge, this is a straight edge, this particular one is a feather edge. Anything you collect, you can put it back on again. It's fairly flat. When you level against it, your straight edge, everything too, it's pretty flat already. You know, we've done a lot of work at the beginning stage, so now the top coat should just fly on in theory. Right, so we flattened it and I've just scratched it. Unfortunately, the GoPro messed up a little bit, so I've actually lost footage of me scratching this particular wall. So what I'm going to do is show you me scratching a wall from another video. The premise is the exact same. The only reason we put the scratch on is so when we put another layer of render on, which we are going to do in a minute, it's got something to grip to. It needs something to stick. If we just left it smooth, the top coat was just literally fall on the floor. So we put a scratch on just to allow the second coat of render to bind to that initial coat. So I'll show you a quick clip from another video, like I said. This is the outside, it doesn't matter, the process is the exact same. All we're doing is allowing a mechanical key for the top coat. So I'll pass you on to that now. Don't go in too deep when you're scratching, just go on the surface. You want to apply some waves, that way top coat's going to stick firmly onto the scratch. So what happens is, because you've got the waves, if it contracts it'll buckle into each shape, meaning you've got a stronger grip. And that's it. Then what we're going to do on this particular wall is we're going to leave it to dry. You can come back the day after, that's one way you can do it. You can wait for this completely dry. What I'm going to do is wait a few hours, let it take up a little bit, and then I'm going to put the top coat on the same day. In my eyes, that means it's a stronger, all-in-one uniformed slab of render because they've kind of dried at similar stages. So I like to do, internally I like to put both coats on the same day. So, like I said, I'll watch you scratch this, I'm going to clean all my tools up, do some other bits in my house, and then come back to do the top coat. Okay, so it's been about 3 hours. The render, it's firmed up. It's still a bit damp, which means you don't have to wet it in. This is one of the perks to doing it on the same day. You don't have to then keep wetting it in. It's still quite damp. I've got a good key, and this means that we can just go straight onto it. So I've got the new mix ready. I'm going to do it the way you should do it. I'm going to work right to left. Okay, let's whack it on. Right to left. Dig it tight into the scratch, really push it in. It's gripping nicely, you can just feel it pull into the scratch there, which is quite nice. The mix for this is 5:1, 5 parts sand, 1 part cement, and I've also put half compound of lime in. Lime is to give it a bit of breathability, a bit of flexibility, and it allows the wall to breathe a little bit, which is always good. You want a bit of that in your mix, so, and it's just lovely to work with, so I definitely recommend lime. So it's 5-1 with some lime in. Again, it's nothing far from what we were doing before. Put it on. Watch out for the plug sockets. I swept the floors, so when I do drop some, I can pick it back up. So all we're doing is just putting it on. Nice tight application, really pushing into that scratch. You'll find as well you've got a bit more time, because the scratch coat is quite damp, you've still got a bit more time to work with the render, so it's quite nice doing it on the same day. You don't really want a stiff mix when you're rendering. You don't want it too wet either, but you do want it you want a bit of moisture in there. Because when you're putting it on, the worst thing is if it's too dry, it's heavy to use, it's hard to flatten, and you'll just find that if it's too stiff, you won't be applying the render in a flat manner, it'll be clumpy, and you'll just struggle to get it flat. Where if there's a bit of moisture to it, it just glides on. It's lovely to use. And it just wants to be worked, where if it's too stiff, you'll just find it's hard work. So you want it not wet, but you want it quite runny, in terms of render at least. So again, we're just working right to left, keeping the hawk underneath the trowel at all times. Give it a little flatten with the trowel, but again, don't play with the render. You want it to be firm, you want it to stay on there, and you need to let it dry and take up a little bit. If you play with the sand cement mix, what you'll do is you'll pull the moisture from the back, bring it to the front, and that's what we call when making a render go drummy. Because I haven't got a fix in, the moisture is taken from the back end, which means it won't be gripping to the scratch. So when you put it on, just leave it for a bit. You will be tempted to play with it. Everyone does, but don't. Just put it on. That's why we use a rule. It's that job's to get it flat. That's it. You could put it on in clumps, it could be all over the place, but it doesn't matter because the rule is what you use to get the wall flat. It's not your trowel. It's never your trowel. It's always the rule. What I do recommend before you even start rendering is just give the wall a block work, brickwork, whatever layer you're working on. Check it with your levels first. That's what I did before I started. I just check the level and just see roughly what we're dealing with. You'll find usually if it's out of plumb, it's going to be top that is sagging in, or elsewhere you might have a dip in the middle of the wall. Just have a look before you start and you kind of know how to gauge the render. What it is, this top, the wall's leaning back, so the top end is pushing to the front a bit, which means the bottom, you want a bit more render than the top to make it plumb. So I've tried to put that into account. Have a quick look. We're not doing too bad there, which I'm actually really surprised with. I didn't think we'd get that. So what we're going to do now is try and rule it flat, using the level as we go to get it perfect. Trusty feather edge again. Same process, nothing different, except this time you'll find it a lot easier. It's not going to be, on the scratch coat you get hit by a lot of the disturbed block work, some of it might have high spots. You're going to find this time ruling round it's going to be beautiful, in theory. So I'm just going to go. It's such a, straight away it's smoother, it's nicer to work with, nothing's in the way. Now like I said, I want to be pushing the top in, taking a bit more from the top, because I've just checked the level. So I'm going to push in a bit more pressure on the front, on the top edge of the rule there. So what we're doing is just working top, working up and down, and we're working horizontally, vertically and horizontally. That's the best way you're going to get it straight. So there's a bit of dip in the middle, work it. Anything you take off, put it back on the wall. You'll notice areas that haven't been touched and ruled off. That means that it's low. So what we're going to do now is when we've ruled off and you can see clearly these sections haven't been touched, we put more render on. That means we're packing them out and we're getting them ready to rule off again. So now I've ruled off, I'm going to put on the sections that are low. Filling in a low spot. It's a big spot here. Just put your render on. Don't be smart. If anything, I put the render on proud. This saves constantly stop starting. When there's low spots, I put more render on than what I actually need. This way, when we're ruling off, you know you're going to have enough to cover it. The worst thing is to keep stop starting. I want to fill in the low spots, rule them off, and just do it twice max, really. You will find it, you will come back to it, but if you put thicker layers on a render, it just makes your life so much easier. So don't be clever about it, just whack it on. Now the other perk gives you something to play with, so when you're putting a bit more than what you need, use a derby, push it in. Now you can use that to fill in the low spots again. Instead of keep getting your trowel, you can use your straight edge. What we did at first, you flatten it, you put a tilt on the feather edge, and now what we're doing is we're holding it completely straight to the wall. So what I'm doing is holding it flat. That way we're just going to get a complete straight edge, and that's when you know it's completely flat. So at the moment I'm just working horizontally. Take your render. This is the other good thing about having the bath. Derby straight into the bath. Straight off, no messing about. Beautiful. Okay, so back now working across. See? Problem is now you've got a low spot at the bottom, so angle it in. Work it again. And what you find, you'll slowly start to get that wall flat. It's quite a skill to learn because at first it's tough going, but you do get the knack of it. It's just practice. So it's another good reason why you should really scratch. Just gives you more time to to learn how to rule off. Okay, we're pretty much there. Like I was saying before, when you are ruling off, it's your final section. Put the straight edge straight flat to the wall, 90 degree. That's when you're going to get your true line and find out how straight it actually is. So, ruling up, 90 degree, just taking the last lumps away. Everything's flat, straight. Run it up. Straight to the top. It's looking good. It does take time, the first panel. But it does get easier, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So that's that. I'm going to quickly check it for plumb now, see where we're at. Hopefully we're there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's probably a mil out, but to be honest, I'm okay with that. Same there. That one's bang on. So it's bang on there. Must admit it's probably 1 mil at the top, but I'm happy with that. otherwise you're here all day. I'm chuffed with that. A good test as well is run it diagonally, run your eye down it, is it straight all the way through, check your edges. Your internals are probably the most important sections to get straight and plumb, because what happens when the walls meet, if you have a dip in the middle or if you have a belly, that's exactly where you'll see it. So if you're going to pay attention to any section, make sure it's your internal angles and make sure they bang on, because that's where people look. As soon as you walk in the room, the first place your eye will go is to the corners. Like that. I'm actually just going to give it one more scrape. And then I'm happy with that, I'm chuffed. So thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel, and yeah, feel free to leave any comments below, and thank you so much. Cheers. Bloody weather.